Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I should really learn, like, the bro equivalent of, like, sister in Japanese. Like, what is the equivalent of, like, kyodai or aniki?
You know, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure there's words for it, but it's not equivalent in terms of, like, Yakuza language, I guess. I don't know if there is one.
Anyway, I'm your host, Madelyn Everywhere.
I'm your host, Emma in her house.
And thanks for tuning in for this side quest episode of Talk This. You've reached that point with us listeners, and we've reached that point. It's been 6 weeks, so it's time for some saved data. It's an episode where Emma and I are going to be talking about what we've been playing for the past month and a half, for the past 3 fortnights. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't know if I felt like my list was shorter, but then I actually looked at it and I was like, is it shorter? I'm not sure. It felt a little bit shorter than last time, in any case. Deeper play, less broad. So are you itching to start with any of your memory card?
Why don't you go first?
Cool. So let's get this out of the way. I didn't play any Animal Crossing in this 6 weeks. I don't think I
really
signed in
nothing.
once.
Not even the update.
I haven't yet. I've been intimidated.
Wow.
Nintendo sent me that guilt email. Your island misses you.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And it almost worked. But I'm just afraid of all my villagers being like, who are you? Maybe they're living happier lives without me.
I mean, I play, like, once a week, and I have to get through their slightly annoying dialogue of being like, where were you? I wish there's a little bit more delay.
Yeah.
Before they started being like, we missed you, you know?
I agree. I mean, I will go back eventually, I think. I'm finally hitting the point where I could feel that itch of wanting to go back and check it out again. But yeah, I've finally really broken the habit. It's a little sad.
I'm finding it a little bit annoying that you can only buy 1 candy a day, which feels like it's trying to make me play a certain amount of days before Halloween so that I have candy for all my neighbors.
Look, there's no dentists on this island, Emma.
I guess not.
So, I don't know what, like, the Nooks are just trying to be responsible.
You never know, maybe Timmy is a master dentist.
You know, I wouldn't put it past him. Definitely got that kind of, like the elf from the Christmas movie kind of vibe from Timmy.
Sure.
But yeah, that's my not played report, is I haven't played Animal Crossing at all. Once a fixture of these, and I still have to talk about it, because...
I've planted some pumpkins. We can get my Animal Crossing update out of the way, because I played it just a little bit.
I had a real-life pumpkin this week. Good
for you. I've got, like, 30 fake pumpkins.
You win.
There's the autumn fishy tourney on Saturdays now. So, there's that. I got a fish drying rack, whatever that means.
I definitely have one of those. In my apartment. No, just kidding. Just in Animal Crossing.
And because I haven't redecorated my house in months, I continue to get about 90,000 points from the Happy Home Academy while they send me the same advice over and over again.
Dang. Your home not as well decorated as mine, apparently.
Yeah.
I think my race car room gets me a lot of points, to be clear.
They just love that synergy, you know? That feng shui of the race car room.
It's cool. They're on the highway.
I think my house looks very nice, and I don't know why they don't like it.
It's not happy or homey enough for them.
Apparently not.
But I've also, to talk about something I've actually been playing, most recently been playing a little bit of Fall Guys again for their new season. Also in the past 6 weeks, I witnessed Emma's great triumph.
Oh, right. That was in this past 6 weeks, wasn't it?
It was. So
it will never happen again.
If you haven't read the interview with Emma, one-time Fall Guys champion, that I witnessed happen, the Clickbait boyfriend and I really did not think that you had won. We were watching it, we were like, oh, poor Emma, she was so close. and then you won.
Yeah. You really gotta hammer that grab button, because people forget. They forget to grab it.
I was close a couple times today. I was, like, within, like, second or third place of winning a couple times today, but you don't get anything for that, so...
Nope.
Lame.
Only sadness.
Have you played the new season yet?
Not yet.
I think that, so, it didn't feel as different as I expected it to be. I imagine that they're rolling more things out over time, perhaps.
Probably.
But there's now a new kind of, as CBB described it, like a medieval jig version of the theme in the title screen, which he was not impressed with. I thought it was fine. He was like, it does not work as well this way.
I'll look forward to it. Does your currency carry over?
It does carry over.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
I was worried about that ever since we talked about it. But yes, the currency did carry over.
Good.
I don't know if that maybe I've just finally leveled up into being a little bit better at the game. And then when I said this on the couch just half an hour ago, I then promptly lost in the first round. So, who knows? But I feel like I've gotten a little bit better at the game. I don't know if it's just that they've balanced something about the physics so that I fall less, but it's feeling smoother. That could just be that they are subtly patching me to make me feel better. But who knows? But I played the 3, I don't know how many new rounds there are, but I played 3, well, I played 2 and I saw another one of the 3 new rounds. I dug Wall Guys. Surely that's been on their board forever, right?
Probably.
Wall Guys.
They've just got a whole list of
Wall
rhyming
guys.
things with fall.
Yeah. Tall
guys, yeah.
It's gonna be like you have to climb to the top of a giant fall guy, probably.
Yeah.
We'll play slime. It'll be like Slime Climb, but like I've got good ideas. They should hire me. But Wall Guys was fun, where you kind of like climb over. It's like what I want to do in DoorDash, because DoorDash sucks. Just climb over the walls. And then CBB played like the new medieval obstacle course, which he just failed miserably. He was really bad. He didn't even really get halfway through the course. He couldn't get through one of the obstacles. And then I just played this new take on like the jumping through hoops game that I really liked. It was really fun. It was like a medieval theme, and you individually, like, you win when you get through 6 hoops.
Cool.
And then you qualify, as opposed to it being like the team-based one.
Right.
And I also played Jinxed for like the first time. We got Jinxed a bunch of times.
I don't like Jinxed.
Really? I like Jinxed better than I like, I don't know, like Egg. I don't know if that's true. I like Jinx better than I like soccer. How about that?
Sure, that's fine. There's just so little control over Jinxed, right? It feels very random.
Yeah.
Because it always gets down to like 1-1 on both sides, and it's just like, well, where are they in this mass of infected Fall Guys?
I won both times, so that may be contributing to me feeling okay about it.
Sure.
You're right that it is a nice virus simulator, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That's most of what I've got to report about Fall Guys. Still haven't won. But also, if you have any tips for not freaking out when you get to the last slime climb obstacle because you've made it so far and you're afraid to blow it, and then you do blow it, by all means hit me up. This has happened to me like the last 3 times I've gotten slime climb. As I get to the end, it's not even that hard, that last obstacle, and I like panic and throw myself off the edge.
It's patience, Madelyn.
I know, but I panic and throw myself off the edge.
A calm mind, a calm body.
So that's my Fall Guys report. Emma, what have you been playing?
I mean, should I start with something I played a lot of, or should I go through the things I played a little bit of?
Give us a lot. I gave us a little sampler. Hit us with something meaty.
Okay. Well, I started and finished 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. That's how you say it. Which is a sci-fi visual novel RTS hybrid game from Vanillaware, whose games I had not played before, but they're pretty well-known, like sort of cult sort of developer, I guess, from Japan. So this is their latest game, which actually, it came out over a year ago in Japan, but the localization process was very long for this one. both because of the scripting and how a lot of the script was being changed right up to the Japanese release, which meant that the English one had to keep changing things too. And also, there's an English dub in it, so the dubbing became a process after everybody had to do it from home, apparently. So I enjoyed it a lot. I admire the ambition on display, and I think that the developers, the goals that the story wanted to meet were met. But it's very much a plot-focused story, right? Like, it's about what's happening, and it's really impressive how, like I'm sure there's certain elements that if I thought about it too hard, it would start to sort of fray a little bit, but just overlooking the story as a whole, like how much it makes sense and is able to logically progress is really cool, especially since it's a story that lets you experience it in almost any order you want, right? Like there's 13 main viewpoint protagonists that each have their own like story segment that you can go through. And then there's the battle parts, which are real-time strategy, that takes place at the end of that story, right? Like, it's the final battle in the battles. So you're simultaneously getting the final battle and, like, all the stuff that led up to that. There's some locks, like, they'll lock you out to either go do battles or go do story. And then there's certain locks in the story that are dependent on other protagonists, but they're not as frequent as you would expect there to be. And I think it actually really works, of just letting you do whatever you want. So, like, there's one protagonist, Juro, who's, like, the main guy on the box. I actually found out, like, I figured out the twist to his story in somebody else's, which you would think would be bad, but I thought was actually really, really cool. Because I was like, oh, and I had to immediately go back to his story afterwards, be like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's what's happening.
What is this game about?
I
see a lot of posting about it, and I don't know anything about what it's about, except how you've described it to me in metaphor.
It's about, so there's these 13 protagonists, and in this final battle, they all have these mechs called Sentinels. And they're fighting off this invading force of mechanical kaiju, which are the big monsters. Yeah. So it's basically about, like, how they get to this point, like, how each of them gets their sentinel, where they're from, and what the actual truth of the world is. So, like, things that are established as truth in one character's viewpoint is actually different when viewed through a different viewpoint, right? And you have to sort of figure out what's happening in this world and how everybody got to the point at the end here. That's my, I don't, like, I would go into it more, but that's Madelin's lore corner, right? And also, like I said, this story is pretty much dependent on its plot. Not that I think it's well written enough that you would enjoy it even knowing the twists, right? Like, knowing the actual end game of it. It's not, like, just shock value and stuff, although I will say it doesn't, like, it gave me a lot of, like, appreciation for the storytelling, but it didn't really give me a lot of emotions, which is why I can't say, like, oh man, I love this, it's my favorite game ever, right? Like, I really admire it, but also I don't, like, the characters are more vehicles for the plot than they are characters, I guess. Like, the weakest point about it is, like, there's all these different, like, romantic relationships. And, like, the entanglements are interesting in the story, but I found a lot of the relationship endgames to be totally underwhelming because, like, they just didn't have real chemistry. Like, the feelings for each other were more plot points than they were, like, character growth, it felt like, in most cases. Like, I was thinking about it, I was like, when did this story, like, give me a feeling, you know? And not, like I laughed sometimes, and I went, sometimes.
The universal feelings. Laugh and
Yeah. But in terms of, like, making me feel moved, like, There was one character ending that made me feel a little moved, and then 2 points in the epilogue, one of which had to do with a side character, and one of which had to do with, like, this background plot line that had been going on. That's not from any of the viewpoint characters, but 2 important characters in the narrative. So, like, that's not, like, that's fine, right? Like, if that's the goal. I don't know why they felt like they needed to put these, like, endgame relationships in there, because doesn't feel super necessary to have, like, big, I love you moments in this. But they were there, and that's probably the weakest part of it for me. And that's just not generally what I like in a story. Like, if your plot can be a mess as long as I like your characters and your themes and stuff, and I feel emotions, right? So, like, as much as I appreciate it, it's not like if that's what you like, if you really like plot and, like, really intricate plotting and, like, cool sci-fi concepts, you'll really like this. But if that's less your thing, you'll probably still like it and enjoy it. But, yeah. So that's kind of how I felt about that.
Since it has the number 13 in it, when can we expect it to appear in the Kingdom Hearts universe?
I just wonder if they like the number 13 over there. It's not like an unlucky number in Japan, I'm pretty sure. That's like 4, I think. But yeah. So tell me, listeners, though, are you team yakisoba-pan or are you team hamburger?
100% yakisoba-pan. Noodles on a sandwich? Come on.
Really, the writing really peaked when the 2 characters had an argument over which one is truly the food of the 80s, so...
You get really, into your Japanese characters' food habits.
I do?
What was the other game? It was Trails of Cold Steel.
Oh.
Right?
I guess so. Yeah, I did do all the recipes, you're right. I did fill out my recipe book in both 1 and 2 of those games.
Well, speaking of eating food in the 80s, right? Decent transition.
Yeah, that's good.
Think.
Good transition.
So in the last one of these, I had just started Yakuza Kiwami. And so in the past 6 weeks, I finished Kiwami, and then I jumped right into Kiwami 2, Yakuza Kiwami and Yakuza Kiwami 2, because it was on sale, and yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. So Kiwami is a great game. It was a really fun game. I really liked it. It has all of the charm that I really liked in Zero. It is not as good as Zero. Which makes me, I've seen all of this stuff online about, like, where should I start with this series? Which makes me feel torn about which game is better to start with. Because I think I think that I would have enjoyed Kiwami and then just enjoyed, like, it would have felt like it built if I then went back to Zero. Although there were plenty of side quests with things that carried over and were interesting.
Yeah.
So it's tricky because it was definitely, like, I wouldn't say it was a letdown, but the plot was not quite, like, it felt its age a little bit.
Yeah.
To me.
Although I do wonder, like, if it would have felt even more, like, because they've added stuff, like, Zero adds some context to the main plot of Kiwami, right?
Yeah.
That I wonder if you just jump into Kiwami, like, if you would feel that age even more, because there's no context to...
Well, I don't understand, like, this plot would be deeply boring without all of the added... So, some spoilers for Yakuza 0 and Kiwami, and maybe some light spoilers for Kiwami 2 follow here, folks. I'll try to keep it light spoilers. But yeah, I mean, so all of the, like, Kiwami has all of these cutscenes with your bro, Nishiki, like, flashing back to what was happening to him during Kiryu's first year in jail, for the crime that Nishiki actually committed.
Yeah.
And that stuff is all new to this game, is my understanding. All that backstory about his sister and how he became the evil man that he is with his evil haircut by the time he emerged from jail. And man, otherwise, it's like, who the heck is this dude? There's already kind of an out-of-nowhere villain who appears in the kind of final act of the game, who is connected to everything else that's going on, but it's like, oh, that's, okay, fine. Like, who's this dude? Whatever. It's a pain in the butt boss fight, but only because he had a bunch of regenerating grunts. So that already happens, and that was already kind of frustrating, and then I can't imagine, like, the final fight being Nishiki, and it's like, who the heck is this dude? Like, I know nothing about this guy except that maybe one time we had Christmas together and now he's evil. For no reason.
I mean, I assume there was some element of the plot there, just maybe not as explicitly laid out as Kiwami makes it for you. And I also wonder if, like, that's, like, a common story for, like, I assume there's some sort of history of, like, Yakuza films over in Japan. I don't know for certain, though. But that seems like it would be, like, sort of like, you know, like the brothers in the clan, you know, go against each other, right? That seems like a setup. So I wonder if they were just relying on, like, familiarity in that respect.
That's fair. I could see that. I saw a lot of reviews of Zero that were, well, not a lot. I saw at least one review of Zero that was complaining that, you know, I played this and it made me care about characters that then went on to totally change. Which at the time I thought was about, like, Oda and Tachibana. But I now see was probably about Nishiki, although I feel it most heavily in Majima, because I think Zero just ruined me for the rest of I think I'm going to be really disappointed with Majima's arc throughout the rest of the games, having played Zero first.
Give it another couple games, you know, you've got 5 more to go.
No, I know. I just think he's just way more interesting than Kiryu, and especially from Zero. And then, so it's like, because of that, I played all of the Majima Everywhere stuff in Yakuza Kiwami. Like, I got to the triple S rank, I did all the annoying stuff I had to do to settle my score with him, hoping for something, like some kind of satisfying final cutscene or something. And all I got was, like, a shirtless brawl with the boys, which is fine, I guess. Like, that's the climax of any Yakuza arc, I suppose. But gosh darn it, shouldn't I have gotten something for beating this guy into not telling people about Kiryu's manly bathhouse battle videos, and for beating him at darts and at pool? He said nice toss when we played darts, by the way, which was too much for me and my haiku loving brain. But yeah, it's just like, I was like, oh, come on, like, give me a little more than this. Even though I did, you know, I enjoyed Majima Everywhere to a point, and eventually he just had so much health, and it's like, oh my god, it takes me like 10 minutes to beat him once, please. Yeah. I just want to get to the end of this. Yeah. But Kiryu is growing on me over time, mostly because I've just leaned into thinking, like, okay, Kiryu's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, that's how we're gonna play this. This Kiryu is just dumb as a brick. And it really makes the story work a little bit better, because he gets conned on the street just over and over and over and over again.
I don't think he's supposed to be particularly intelligent, so I think that's a totally fair
I know. But it's just like, everyone's like, oh, Kiryu's the dad. It's like, no, Haruka is the mom in this relationship. Just cold cut, 100%.
Oh,
in Kiwami 2, she witnesses another person gets shot in front of her in, like, the first hour of Kiwami 2. Like, after she's watched, like, 20 billion people get just absolutely wrecked by Kiryu and blown up and, like, all of this stuff in the first game. And, like, when that happens, she's like, should I go back to the orphanage for a while so that you can, like, do your job? Kiryu doesn't even ask. Like, she's just like, I can go back to Sunflower. Like, it's okay. It's like, okay, thanks, Mom. But yeah, I really meant it. When I finished Kiwami, I was like, I'm going to play something else. And Emma can attest to the fact that I was like, I found out that the Cabaret Club is back, and that there's new playable Majima content in 2, and gosh dang it, I need my breaker style back. So we just jumped right into Kiwami 2. But still would recommend the series to anyone and everyone. You should probably start with Zero. Probably.
I think so. I mean, it gives the best impression for a starting point, I think.
You could start with Kiwami. But Well, yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I imagine that many of the things that felt like Easter eggs in Kiwami would feel like Easter eggs if you played 0 Second as well.
That's fair.
So, it's tricky. And I'm digging the Dragon Engine in 2. Smooth combat. Love getting to walk in and out of my stores. Sure, when I kick people, they fly like 100 feet. But we'll take the trade-offs. So that's the Yakuza review here at Talk This NYC HQ. Full-time cabaret club simulator.
Yeah.
Your turn. What's up next?
I guess I'll go through the few games that I have started.
Perfect.
And played a little bit of in the last 6 weeks. So, after I saw the Final Fantasy 16 trailer, I decided to download the free trial for Final Fantasy 14.
Like a fool.
And get into that. I've only played it a couple of times since I did that, because it's the free trial version, so I don't really need to rush through the content for any reason right now. But I'm enjoying it. I don't remember what my race is actually called, but they're like not dragon people, if I remember correctly. And I don't remember what my class is called, but she punches. So that's good.
So it's
the Punch class. Yes. You're right, it is. It's
Punchy like a dragon.
It's the curious setup. But I'm enjoying it. There's lots of right now it's very much like getting started, right? Like any sort of JRPG type thing or any MMO at the same time. But there's lots of different little quests to do, and I'm learning how to set up shortcuts and stuff. And I really like the gameplay of the Punchy class. It's just like you're supposed to like do your arts in like a specific order so you can get more and more sort of damage multipliers. So that's kind of satisfying. And I'm enjoying that. And I'm looking forward to hopping back into it when I have a little bit. Like, there's a lot going on the screen in Final Fantasy XIV. There's lots of text and alerts and stuff happening, and it's a little bit much for my brain recently, as will be a theme for some of these games.
Is it making you want to rewatch Dad of Light?
I don't think I ever watched Dad of Light. Just you did. I'll have to go. I should probably go back and watch. Yeah. But yes, I am excited to see the Final Fantasy XIV team on a single player experience in the next one. Although it doesn't look like you have party members, which is a bit of a letdown for me in terms of what Final Fantasy is about.
Final Fantasy without party members?
Yeah. Like 16 looks like you do, at least the combat that they've shown, there's just the one character.
Well, fortunately, it's not going to come out for another 7 years.
Did you see the interview where he like specifically addressed that? Yeah.
It's like some people in the West.
Yeah. Yep. Another one I've started but haven't continued with yet is Paradise Killer, which is an open world mystery solving game.
Funky.
Not like a huge open world, but like you can go wherever and talk to people, and it's pretty much on you to put the evidence and stuff together for your case at the end, as I understand it. So you can basically, like, you're free to accuse anyone as long as your case is solid. But that does rely on you, like, actually reading the evidence and understanding what's there. Which, as I said, my brain is not up for that right now. But I like it. It's very funky and cool. I like the character designs. I really like the idea of it, right? Like, that's a cool idea in terms of, like, most detective sort of things just rely on you figuring out, like, the right answer, right? Whereas this one is, like, actually wants you to make your case solidly. So what I've been doing so far is, like, just running around the island, like, gathering tons of evidence and not looking at it for now. So that's what we're doing at the moment. There's still, like, a ton of open leads for me to pursue, so I'm not too worried about getting, like, sucked into the hard part anytime soon. But I think it deserves more of my attention than it's currently getting, so it is waiting for me to feel up to it again right now. And then the last one is I just started Crosscode this week, which is a little indie sort of RPG. I think it's all in HTML5, which was, like, a fun trivia point for a while, I think, in terms of, like, coding it, which is not the typical thing you use for games.
I know a lot about coding, absolutely.
But in that one, you're playing as Lee, who is a person who has lost her memories, and they're trying to get them back by having her play an MMO she used to play.
Okay, meta.
Yeah, it's unclear why that will help or so far. And it has a fun sort of twist on the silent protagonist in that her speech stuff didn't set up correctly when she logged in for some reason.
Okay.
So the person who's, like, overseeing her is, like, slowly, like, hard coding words into her vocabulary. So currently she can say hi, and Lee, which is her name.
Nice.
And that's it. That's all she can say.
Awesome.
She can also, nod and shake her head. So
That's
there's
good.
yes and no covered already. But I'm enjoying it in terms of, like, how she tries to communicate using only those words, which I think is a fun sort of way to be like, she's a silent protagonist, but also she's not, which is nice. So yeah, those are the games that I've been playing a little bit of.
Well, speaking of mystery puzzle-solving games, Click Boyfriend and I turned Return of the Obra Dinn into sort of a co-op solver, since it is not a game that has too much actual controller interaction, to be honest.
Yeah.
It came with the recommendation of one of his colleagues, one of his academic colleagues, who also played it with his partner. So I can recommend it as sort of an unconventional co-op kind of game if you're feeling tired of playing with your actual friends in Among Us and you want to solve something without that. Just look for what's sus on your own. I really enjoyed Return of the Obra Dinn. If you're not familiar with it, it made a big splash last year, 2 years ago,
sometime.
Semi-recently. It was on some Game of the Year lists. And you're an insurance inspector, and you're checking out this ship that blew back into port after everybody was murdered on it, basically. You have this, like, magic stopwatch that one of the people who escaped has sent to you, and it allows you, when you find a body, to go back and hear their final moments and then see in a freeze frame through the style of, like, a very old computer what happened at the moment of their death. And so it's your job as an insurance assessor to figure out who like, how everybody died, when, and who they all are. And I thought Obra Dinn was superb for the first 90% of the game. And then the last 10% gets really wobbly for me. So I won't spoil anything here that you don't find out in the first, like, 10 minutes of the game. But first of all, the way that you figure out some of the last people that you don't, like, the people that are hardest to figure out or that have the fewest identifying features, it was kind of like I get that there's only so much you can do, but some people you figure out through stuff that's like, oh, that's kind of like, you just had to put something in there so I could figure it out, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it felt cool when I figured out some people based on their shoes that I saw on a scene. It felt less cool when I figured them out because something was, like, tagged with their number. at a point in the scene.
Yeah.
Like the shoes one, I was like, that's cool. Like, can't believe I figured that out. And the one was like, oh, the hammock is 17. It wasn't 17 or whatever it was. I was like, oh, that's like you had to put something in there, huh?
Yeah.
It was.
So you appreciated when it made you feel smart, basically.
Yes, exactly. And it was gratifying to, you know, part of the problem with this, not the problem, but a thing that you grapple with in this game is how much does the game expect you to profile members of the crew, right? Like there are different folks, like there are folks from various countries in Asia and the Middle East and such, and Russia on the ship, and sometimes it's like, well, this is the one midshipman left who doesn't look European, like, and there's one guy who has a name, or who is from a country that isn't England, and even though I think that, like, not quite to that egregious a degree, even though I think that sometimes we did figure people out based on those kinds of identifiers, oftentimes later on we would see, oh, look, like, in that scene, that's how I was supposed to be able to figure it out. Right. So it was gratifying to notice that after the fact. However, like, so you find out at the beginning that this guy who sent you the stopwatch and the book where you're filling in all of the fates, that he has knowledge about, like, a chapter, like, it's divided into, I think it's 11 chapters, and he has knowledge about chapter, like, 9, I think. That might not be maybe it's 10 chapters and it's chapter 8. He has knowledge about, like, the second to last chapter. And he's only going to give that to you when you do the rest of the book, and then he'll send it to you. And I won't spoil what happens there, but it felt like a lot of build-up to something that was going to explain all of the wild things that happened on the Oberdin's voyage, and did not do that, to my mind.
Uh-huh.
It was a cool twist how you were able to see that chapter. Like, that was the coolest part of it for me, was the way that this guy made sure you'd be able to get back to see these events. That was cool. Mm-hmm. When you saw what was actually happening there, like, both my boyfriend and I were, like, just like, we were expecting more, like, something bigger, something that would make all the
dragon.
I mean, kind of, yeah. There are, like, not to spoil, like, there are some supernatural elements of things that happen to the Oberdin, and I was expecting more clarity on some of that than perhaps I received at the end. There were just a lot of questions left over for a game that was mysterious. So I would highly recommend it. It was a really fun game to play. We got very into it. I know you can't play it because you're afraid of the graphics of it. But
I'll get to it at some point. It just, like, even looking at trailers for that game makes me a little bit uncomfortable. So,
well, the graphics work in a very cool way, though, because sometimes even when you can really clearly see what's going on, it's just something about, like, the way the graphics work either helps you, like, you can trace the path of the bullet by the pixels, or hurts you because it's just not clear enough to see what's happening. Yeah. You know, there were all sorts of little quirks that were frustrating, where it's like, I can see what happened to someone, and I just need to figure out what the terminology is that you want me to use here. That was sometimes a little bit frustrating, but that's unavoidable. So I would still really recommend playing it. Just from me, I found the ending to be somewhat of a letdown after a game that I felt was so intricately constructed and smartly constructed. I just felt like all that build-up didn't quite stick the landing for me. But still super worth playing. Not much like anything that I have played since the Nancy Drew games. So worth checking out.
How many more games do you have, by the way?
Not really any.
Not really any?
Okay. I can talk about Hades, but...
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to jump into, but I'll just, if you had significantly more than me, because I have Hades and then the couple of games I played from the Black Lives Matter bundle.
Well, I'll just wrap up my other thing then. The only other game I played this 6 weeks was for the podcast, was Wattam.
Right.
I haven't
Did you finish it?
Not yet. I'm really meaning to, but because I know it's only like an hour and a half left, I'm like, oh, I'll do it later.
Yeah.
But this coming 6 weeks, I do plan to finish it. I do want to just tie a bow in it. I just haven't to be in the right mood for what I'm. You know?
Right, of course.
Also, our like we've been spending all of our time on Yakuza and Hades here.
Yeah.
So there just hasn't been TV space.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, it was pretty much just 13 Sentinels and Hades for me, so I feel that. So yeah, I've been playing a lot of Hades, which has had its version 1 release now. I got it when it came out on Early Access on PC, and have played it not a lot since then. Just because PC is not a very natural place for me to play action games.
Imagine being comfortable gaming on a PC.
I mean, the Hades is recommended for controller anyway, right? And I did, when I played it on the computer, I plugged in my PS4 controller, which wasn't that bad, but it just, I don't know, it just doesn't, it feels weird for some reason.
I'm more roasting myself than anything else. I'm sure it's very easy to get comfortable playing games on a computer, and I just am not.
Yeah. Part of that is, like, not really having a mouse that I use regularly, I think.
That's valid,
like a separate mouse. I think that's pretty essential for PC gaming.
Fair enough.
But anyway, I got it again on Switch when it came out, and it feels like a much more natural sort of fit there for me. It is definitely also cleaned up a lot since the time I last played it, in terms of, like, it just feels better to play than I remember it being. So clearly Early Access helped them out. And yeah, I'm really, really, really enjoying it. I think it's Supergiant's best work. I still haven't played Pyre, but still, I feel pretty comfortable saying that this is their best game so far. In terms of, like, they really take the roguelike concept and do something neat with it, I think. In terms of, like, setting it in this setting, like the underworld, where it really makes sense. And the way the narrative is set up feels really satisfying too, right? Like, it doesn't feel bad when you die, really, or at least it doesn't feel bad for very long for me.
Tell that to my boyfriend last night who lost on Hades' second health bar. It's like screaming. He wasn't screaming, but close to screaming.
On my back when I was like on my 6th or 7th time out, I was trying to get out with the spear for the first time, because the spear is my worst weapon. Everybody has their least favorite weapon, and mine is the spear, 100%. But I got him down to, like, probably, like, 2 or 3 more hits on his last health bar, and he murdered me, so.
Murder.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been a good time, and I like all the characters, and I like the artwork, and it's just fun to play. You know?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I have not started it yet, mostly because I don't know how I will get Clickbait Boyfriend to relinquish it. But because I'm just afraid, like, I'm afraid I'm going to get very into it. Also, I'm afraid that I've seen enough, like, I feel like I need to make Josh play it when I'm not in the room a little bit more, because I've seen a lot of it. And I'm hoping now that the beginning is going to feel fresh, because I haven't seen it as much, haven't seen it as recently. But I have been putting off. I made myself wait to start it until I finished Yakuza, not betting on myself immediately getting the second game there. So I was like, you can't start Hades, you gotta finish this game, and then of course I didn't get back to Hades. But I've watched a lot of Hades, so I know all about how it works.
Yeah.
I think
I'm on my 9th timeout now. I've gotten out 8 times. I'm trying for my 9th. I think there's 10 escapes in the main story, but then there's, like, a ton of other side stuff to do. Like, I have, like, 3 characters, like, up to the locked heart on how much nectar I've given them, and I can't figure out how to let me give them ambrosia. Like, I gave, Karen is all the way maxed, and Cerberus is all the way maxed, because I gave them ambrosia, but I don't understand why the other characters, like, if there's something special I need to do. So that's what I'm working on figuring out right now. Along with, dealing with the Orpheus and Eurydice and Achilles and Patroclus,
Patroclus, I think.
Patroclus. Thanks, Latin, Madelyn.
It's Greek.
It's similar. I assume knowing Latin might help you a little bit with Greek names.
Maybe. I'll give it to you.
Okay. Patroclus. Situations. And making friends with Boldy the Boulder, who is now my best friend. So, there's that. So there's lots of side stuff to do outside of the main story. So after I finish the escape attempts, I might slow down on playing it, but I think I will probably still be playing it a pretty significant amount by the time we talk about our games again.
Yeah. Orpheus started singing Eurydice's song last night in CBB's run, which was just too much. It was just too much for me.
Why is that too much for
I'm
you?
just gonna tag out.
Why are you gonna tag out there?
It's too wholesome.
It is pretty wholesome. No, when I came in and Orpheus was singing, I was like, ha! Ha! He's singing! I've taken to only, like I stop and, like, read my codex entries, either when I'm in Eurydice's chamber, or when Orpheus is singing in the House of Hades, just because I get a nice soundtrack to my reading then.
Nice.
So it feels like a good way to do it. I know technically my escape attempts are timed, and I should be trying to beat my best time, but also I'm just gonna stand in Eurydice's house for a while.
Josh has taken to stealing Charon's gold.
Oh, I've only seen that once, and I didn't do it.
Okay, yeah, don't, because he will murder you.
But we're best friends now, so maybe he'll just let me take it.
So the first time, Zag is just like, oh, sorry, like, I thought I could borrow it, like, please don't murder me. And then after that, he's like, yeah, I stole it, so what's it do ya? But yeah, you fight him.
I'll have to try that next time.
Only if it's a run you don't care about.
Yeah. I'll have to try that when I've gone down all my Death Defiances.
If you win,
the Hydra sometime.
If you win, you get the gold and 20% off.
Wow. 20% off.
But it's not worth it.
What a steal.
Literally.
Anyway, Theseus is the worst. That's also my review. They posted like some like animation tests for the fists on their Twitter the other day, and that was all against Theseus, and I was like, I felt that.
Solid.
That's satisfying.
Oh, Theseus. Could have been Heracles.
I just wanted Heracles.
Had to be Theseus.
I have no problem with Asterius, just Theseus. Wish he would go away. Anyway, my last few things, I only played a couple of games from the Humble Bundle, Racial Justice Bundle, this time. I want to get back on doing it more regularly, like trying to start a game a week, and then if it takes me longer than a week, I can skip the next week, but I want to have more of a schedule for getting through some of these games. But I played Hidden Folks, which is like sort of like a Where's Waldo sort of game. Like it's these sort of black and white illustrations with little dudes, and you have to find the things by clicking around that the game wants you to find in these the sound effects are like the people like making them like with their words and mouth, which some people might find charming and didn't really work for me, but it does sort of fit with the aesthetic, I guess. So if you like finding like hidden like Where's Waldo books and like looking at pictures and finding what you need to do, there's sort of like puzzle elements to it in terms of like clicking things at the right time so that things will happen. So I can recommend that if that's the type of game that you like. And then I tried a little bit of Orion Trail, which is from Shell Games. And it is indeed Oregon Trail in space. Which I know, we're all shocked. There's a little bit more to it in terms of like you have like officers who have like different skill levels and things. So when you have a higher skill in a level, like you have a better chance of getting a good outcome on like a random event. And they have like health bars and stuff too. So there's a little bit more to it in terms of like having like random events and like more creative than just like you found a river.
I don't know. You can see Emma's river dance right there. Not river dance, just river dance.
I haven't played Oregon Trail in a while, so I don't really remember what happens in that exactly. But it was a fun little diversion. It's definitely very RNG based, so you have to not be like playing it super seriously, right? Like you're just sort of there to pass the time. But it's charming in its own way. So those are the two I played this last 6 weeks.
Well, nice. Will Melody of Memory come out in the next 6 weeks?
The demo will. And yes, because it's early November, I think.
So, next time in 6 weeks, get ready for Kingdom Hearts all the time episode. Nothing but Kingdom Hearts.
Yep.
Just kidding. Or am I?
There'll probably be some other things in there. There's a few weeks before we get to that point where we could play some other games. You can play Kiwami 2 and Kingdom Hearts, and that's all we'll talk about. It'll just be... I also am getting Like a Dragon, which I think comes out the same day as Melody of Memory. So it will just be Kingdom Hearts and Yakuza, so...
They have a lot of the same energy.
They do, kinda, yeah.
There's a lot of valuable friendship.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking when I was playing 13 Sentinels, like, there's some thematic stuff in terms of, like, memory and computer data that feels very Kingdom Heartsy. And I was wondering, like, in terms of, like, memory, at least, memory and identity, like, how memories make up your identity, like, I feel like that's something that comes up in a lot of games from Japan I've played. And I wonder if it's just that I naturally gravitate towards games that have that theme, or if it's like a popular sort of idea in Japan now-ish, you know? I'm just curious.
I just think that all the dudes at Square Enix are nervous about going senile.
It's not a Square Enix game, it's Atlas.
I know, I'm just kidding, but it's interesting. I don't know if that's just like it's enough of an RPG trope, or
yeah. I mean, my one theory, I was playing Judgment, and that one was slightly about like the aging population and dementia, which maybe that's like a anxiety right now over there.
I guess that makes sense.
Comes out in like memory themes, but that's my uninformed opinion. My no research done whatsoever thought process.
Uninformed opinion corner. Anyway, tune in 6 weeks. 6 weeks is November 15th. Which didn't seem quite right to me, but I guess October is a long month.
Are you sure that's 6 weeks? Man, time doesn't mean anything.
I counted it.
I can't even count weeks anymore.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's November 22nd. I missed one.
That sounds better.
So it'll be your pre-Thanksgiving gaming stuff. And then we'll get to do a what did we play in the end of the year recap at the end of the year. It'll be great. So definitely tune in for that in 6 weeks, but tune into the 5 weeks before that. What are you doing? Next week, we're going to be talking about Super Meat Boy and Ghost of Tsushima.
Wow, you got it!
I did, because I've been talking to CBB about it. We've been like, are we going to get Ghost of Tsushima? You can pet the dogs now.
Yeah.
So stand by to see which game I play for next week, because it's still up in the air. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be talking about the split screen cycle Reborn. So I'll come up with some fun topic or other that we'll talk about, and then it all just keeps on rolling from there. But folks, if you want even more Talk This in your life, you should follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. So stick around there for some updates from us periodically, our thoughts on things. This is what social media is. Some updates sometimes, our thoughts on things. And also, it'll keep you up to date on all the haps on our website, www.talkthispodcast.com. When you're at our website, you can learn all about the show, see the games that are in the hat that we pull from our main editions, and check out the blog featuring long-running series, Clickbait Boyfriend, which I guess will probably come back in these next 6 weeks with Melody of Memory, even though we just finished. But it's, it's never too soon for more Clickbait Boyfriend. And Split Screen, featuring us watching Coffee Prince, which we did find another streaming service for. You'd be relieved to know.
Yes.
And My Hero Academia, which we now have to pay for.
Yes.
Thanks, Funimation.
That came out, the new one for that came out yesterday, by the way.
And Corona Anime recap from me is coming soon. We might end up cutting Clickbait Boyfriend's reactions. He feels too much pressure to be clever, so we might just let him off the hook.
I think that's fair.
But I have some excellent doodles coming in that one, so if for nothing else, tune in for me drawing masks and funny stuff on characters. It's worth it for that. But most importantly, if you like Talk This, you should subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find Talk This. So like I said,
yeah.
Next week we are back with Super Meat Boy and Ghost of Tsushima, and you should definitely subscribe, because who knows if Twitter is going to show you the links to our podcast.
I think maybe it's just like they didn't like that many links in it for some reason. Like, I've been experimenting, because I saw somewhere that, like, if you put the links in the first tweet, like, sometimes it treats it as spam and won't show it to people, but it didn't like it in the second tweet either, so I guess we'll just we'll continue experimenting.
So you should subscribe so Emma does not have to figure out the intricate workings of the Twitter algorithm to get you to each week's podcast.
They want you to quote retweet now, which is
who knew?
Neat.
Super neat.
Not.
I guess. Who knows? I don't know what Twitter is. But
there's some big drama with Twitter right now. That's all.
Really? Is there? With Twitter? No
yeah,
way.
Yeah.
Big drama with Twitter? No way.
They're really trying to avoid, like, banning a certain user. So
it's me. It's Tuck This.
Yeah,
for posting
it's us.
Too many links. You heard it here first. Well, folks, as always, thanks for listening. We love doing the podcast and talking about the games we've been playing. It's all good stuff. Emma, who's doing the sign-off this week?
You can do it.
All right.
I'll leave it to you.
This week, I hope you solve your puzzle, whether that's on an old computer, in an open world, or wherever that other game was that was puzzle game, in the Where's Waldo book.
Okay.